You're listening to the TV Obsessive channel, presented by TVObscast.com.
Hello and welcome back to episode 67 of the TV Obsessive podcast. My name is Ryan Kirksey, writer and contributor for TVObsessive.com, and as always, joined by Cameron Crane, executive editor for the site. And just for a little while today, Cameron, we have to go back.
You have to go back. Back to the island.
Back to the island for one day at least.
I have to go back, Kate. All right, so we're gonna talk about Lost. It's the 20th anniversary of the premiere of Lost this Sunday, right? September 22nd, which is also the first day of fall. For some reason, I was looking that up today, and I thought, hey, is it the last day of summer?
Which is also
no, it's
the
not.
third. It's the 30th anniversary of the premiere of Friends on Sunday as well.
Oh, is it now?
So yeah, big day.
Oh, never got super into Friends. They're releasing like some 4K Friends box set, I guess.
Yeah.
Guy Byron Lafayette's supposed to like review it for the site. I don't know. We don't do that kind of stuff a lot, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if that happens, if they actually send it to him.
I think I've seen every Friends episode, and I went with some friends, ironically, to a Friends trivia night at a bar one time and did horrifically. I did horribly.
Yeah. I never got super into Friends.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, I don't know. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
But,
just nice meat and potatoes show. Yep.
Yeah, but it's always like, even in the kind of sitcoms of the time, I ranked it below like Frasier or Seinfeld, stuff like that. Anyhow, we're not talking about Friends.
No, we're not.
We're talking about Lost. Hopefully, people tuning in are fans of Lost, as we are. That'll be in the latter part of the podcast. Should be an interesting discussion and kind of celebration of 20 years of a show that we quite like.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we'll talk about that more later. It's September 20th, as per usual. Before we get into talking about Lost or whatever we're really delving into for the week, we'll hit a bit on what's been in the news and stuff like that. So what caught your eye this week, Ryan? Where do you want to start?
Yeah, a few Netflix things coming out this week. Maybe most interestingly to me would be Black Mirror casting. We know that there's another season coming, but we got a whole list, I guess, through a social media post of all of the actors and actresses who will be on episodes in this upcoming season, including those that will be on the sequel to USS Callister, the non-Jesse Plemons version. And yeah, we have some interesting names here.
Yeah, Jesse Plemons not listed.
Right.
Spoiler alert, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Simpson's on there, Kristen Milani's on there. I just presume that ties right into this idea that they're doing a USS Callister follow-up, sequel, whatever we want to call it, which I know we've hit on before. I'm personally not super excited about, but I will watch it. In general with Black Mirror, this most recent season was kind of meh to me comparatively.
Yes. I think we both agree on that. It was an uneven season. I don't know, that's sort of I don't know if this whole upcoming season will be sort of a back to the hits type of thing, but we certainly know at least one will be a sequel to a previous episode. Don't know we have too much about others. But yeah, I think there was some mixed reactions to the last season.
I have this fear that Charlie Brooker is bored with the concept of the show. And I don't know, like, that's fine. Do something else then. But I guess he's got this property where, it's an anthology show, you can do different things, but I mean, I did think though the quote unquote Red Mirror was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really Black Mirror when you're going into like supernatural horror kind of vibes. Anyhow, some of the names on this list stood out to me. Paul Giamatti's on here, Peter Capaldi's on here, Rashida Jones on here, Sita Ray. So I mean, cast is looking good, if nothing else, and hopefully season 7 will refine the magic of making you look into a screen and feel deeply bad about being human.
We may have talked about this before, but as reality becomes more and more unnerving, does Black Mirror lose some of its punch when you just can't really compete with reality anymore?
Well, see, that's kind of what I thought about season 6, is that they were afraid to make it even darker.
Right,
than
right.
reality, you know? And I definitely think they could have, and I think that they just kind of didn't want to. They sort of did it with the one about AI, the
Yeah.
AI TV show one. For some reason, the title's eluding me at the moment, but most of the other ones, not so much. And it's like, well, you certainly could do some things with some of the stuff that's been going on in the world and take it, to a darker place.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't know. I remember back in like 2020, Charlie Brooker said something in an interview like, we don't need Black Mirror right now. The world's distressing enough.
Yeah.
It's Black
And
Mirror. Yeah, it made me feel bad about myself. Make me feel bad about humanity. That's very
yeah,
specific.
for more than a decade now. So yeah, thanks Black
Yeah.
Mirror for yeah, all of your dark reflection of reality. I mean, that's essentially what they're doing here. Elsewhere on Netflix, we got a Game season 2 teaser, a short little glimpse at some scenes from the season that will be released in December. I don't know what your takeaway from this was. To me, it was this just looks a whole lot like season 1, and I'm not sure what the difference is so far.
Still not a whole lot there.
Yeah,
My biggest question is I don't quite know how our friend gets back in the game,
yeah,
which I guess is the premise. I mean, I apologize, I can't remember the character's name off the top of my head. But kind of wondering about that, I guess. And I mean, they'll have to answer that question sort of right away. But it does feel a little bit to me like they're saying, well, we want to make more Squid Game. It's a
yes,
huge global phenomenon, and we want to recapture that magic. And the way to recapture that magic is back in the game. Um, there's some narrative wonkiness though about that, and I'm curious to see how they handle that early on.
yeah.
Um,
I think they've again light spoilers for Squid Game. We sort of talked about there may be a sense of to take down the game, you have to get back in the game sort of situation. And so that's what this character tries to do. And, I guess the newness of it will be all new games and plots and sadistic things they try to do to these people. So we'll see if there's enough there, I guess.
yeah, but it's anyway. We get into too much spoiler territory. But it's like they
Yeah.
would know who he is, and what do you mean you're going to
Yeah.
take down the game from within? And I don't know. But I'm guessing that the like individual challenges will be different. So it'll probably be pretty entertaining, if nothing else. But
Yeah.
there was
No, yeah. That's, I think, the most probably anticipated part of this is what will the challenges be and how will they be different? If they come back and do the same challenges, I mean, I'll be out. Forget it. We've seen this.
yeah, I'm sure they won't. I'm sure they won't. There was real depth to the first season. There was a
Yeah,
real kind
yeah,
of dark critique of capitalism at play and some other stuff I wrote on it. If you want to check out my article on TVObscast.com, and point you in that direction. Um, Definitely watch season two. I don't
yeah.
know if I'll write on season two, maybe, or maybe someone else on the site will. I'd like to cover it one way or another. So if it falls to me, I will do it. Um, Other things on the horizon. As you mentioned, Industry is getting a fourth season. We've talked about that show a little bit. You've been watching it, or we're watching it.
Yeah,
And
I'm a
last time you
few.
said maybe not anymore. Where are you standing with
Yeah,
that?
I'm still a few episodes behind, not caught up, not quite sure if I will. I likely will finish out this season. But this was, I think, unique in a sense that often HBO does a season ends on Sunday, then on Monday we get the renewal announcement. This is getting the announcement 2 or 3 episodes before the end of the season. So, being a show that has increased in, I think, viewership and popularity since it came out in 2020, the creators wanted a fourth season sort of tie this up, and they're quick to say yes. I think people have really been attracted to whether it's the Kit Harington aspect of it or just some of the other pieces of this season. People have been attracted to the show this year, and so it's going to get a fourth and potentially final season.
Cool. No, I mean, it definitely makes sense. HBO, if you think about it, doesn't have a whole lot of ongoing popular series.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know that it, comparatively speaking, anyway, and I don't know that the industry hits that upper echelon quite. Maybe it's like just below that or something.
yeah,
We'll keep it, gotta keep it going. do the
Yeah,
industry, we'll do the Gilded Age. Um, I mean, of course, I said that, but they do still have the Righteous Gemstones, which we'll get back
right.
at some point. But I don't know how like hugely popular that is either. I know quite a few people who enjoy it, like us,
Yeah.
but I
I
don't.
see, yeah, I see shows like Righteous Gemstones and Industry as okay, we have to have something to put on Sunday nights when it's not Game of Thrones and Last of Us and some of these other bigger properties.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I met up with a friend recently, and we were talking about TV, and I asked him if he'd seen the Righteous Gemstones, and he said no. Although the next thing he said was, "I love Danny McBride. I've seen all his
Yeah.
other shows." I'm like, "Well, why haven't you watched the Righteous Gemstones? What are you doing?" So I don't know. I don't know if it's like really setting the world on fire, but hopefully we'll get that. We'll get some other stuff coming back on HBO moving into 2025. Hopefully we'll get some new series, and they can, reestablish their glory of
Yeah.
putting on television everyone feels they have to watch it Sunday at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
That's what
I
we
don't
want.
know. I don't know if they feel the I don't know if they feel the demand to try to make every Sunday night of the year an event, or if they're like, okay, we know that there's going to be some, and we would just want to have good quality programming on there the rest of the time. I'm not sure what their strategy is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There was a point, and this wasn't long ago. I mean, there was a point in terms of thinking about the website, TV Obsessive, and all of that, where I was saying, look, whatever is on 9 p.m. on Sunday on HBO, I want to cover. We have to have
Right.
someone writing on it, no matter what it is. And that kind of fell off because they did things like saying, oh, well, now we're going to move the Gilded Age to Sunday night. And
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
we don't have someone on that as a going concern. We didn't have anyone on season one. It's hard to pick up with season two. Kind of same thing with industry.
Yeah.
Um, where originally those shows were on Monday, right? So
Right.
they went from saying we want to own not only Sunday night, we're going to try to own Monday night too,
Yes.
to kind of not having enough programming even to fill Sunday night.
Yeah. Exactly.
I guess
Exactly.
a strike's part of that, but um,
Well, more,
anyhow,
yeah, more stuff coming soon. I am very torn on this next item. I have watched the trailer for the upcoming, I believe it's going to be on Prime Video, The Office Australia. I cannot say that this made me want to, for as much of a fan as I am of both the British and American versions of The Office, this is not something that I watched it and said, "Oh, I will be there on day one."
yeah. I mean, it kind of depends on the characters,
Yeah,
and then like we're not Australian,
that's
which
true.
might really be relevant here.
It
I
might.
mean,
Yeah,
like I watched The Traders Australia. I don't know if you ever went that far and
not yet.
yourself, but it's like that was fine.
Yeah.
It's still in English and everything. But even if you think about the British Office versus the American Office, they're really quite different when it comes down
Yes.
to it. And so, okay, fair enough. You want to make one in Australia, fine. I have no objection, but I think in order to really grab us, it would be about the characters, right?
Yeah, it would have to be, and everyone knows this, but I think we should say that the American version of The Office, the first season, had some real growing pains, and there were some questions there about whether or not after these 6 episodes, if it will continue. And so, for a variety of reasons, certainly different here than there will be a lot of scrutiny on this show. But it should be given some room to breathe. Certainly, we haven't have any indication, I don't think, of how many episodes will be in the first season or when that will come, but we'll be able to find it on Prime Video should you be interested.
Yeah. I mean, the American version kind of had to find its own way, had to find its own footing and become itself in a
Yeah.
sense, because I enjoyed the British version, but like in the British version, Ricky Gervais's character is just like a bad person. He's a bad
Yes.
boss and a bad person, and that's the
Yes.
character, right? And with what Steve Carell did with Michael Scott in the US version, he's like
He's
he's
just
a bad boss,
he's a
but
buffoon. Yeah.
maybe kind of a good
Yeah.
guy,
He-
maybe it's meaningfully different.
exactly. Yeah. No, it will depend a lot on that. I mean, this is all based on a 2 minute glimpse of cuts and quick looks at characters. We have no idea the depth of these characters and their relationships. So yeah, might be worth giving a chance, but I don't know. Just what was it something that said I will be there when it opens?
No, I'm definitely more intrigued about whatever the Office reboot sequel
Yes,
series
yes,
show idea thing that's supposed to be coming down the pike eventually. We don't have any updates
definitely.
on that at the moment. On a negative note, Apple TV Plus canceled the Time Bandits series. I wanted to mention that. We do have something on TVObscast.com from Brian Allen on the first season. He enjoyed it. Sorry, Brian. I'm Brian. I'm so sorry they cancel all your stories. It's really. I don't know if Brian. I don't know if he listens to this podcast. He might. He might. I know he likes podcasts, but seriously, man. Time Bandits, Outer Range, Raised by Wolves, like these are all shows that he very
Oh
much
no.
enjoyed, and they're just like, no more, no more Night Sky either.
Yeah, well, as you said, after one season, this was the Lisa Kudrow led project on Apple TV Plus, canceled after one season. Yeah, we did. I think I did at that point check out the piece, and there was some positive review there. This piece that we'll link to from the Hollywood Reporter, they enjoyed it, thought it was funny and clever. So yeah, some good feedback, but as we talked about with the Apple TV Plus numbers, the viewership is often not there. And so they've got to make the decision, particularly on these what look like an expensive show to make.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the budget. I mean, I enjoyed it also. I did check this one out, and I thought it was fun. It was just
Yeah.
fun. You can watch it with your kids. I think we talked about it on the podcast before, but maybe not as noteworthy as the original Terry Gilliam film that it was based on or whatever. But it was fun. It was kind of a shame, and I do have that ongoing worry we talked about before with some of the stuff that's come out about Apple TV Plus, and
Hmm.
for a while it seemed like they were making all sorts of stuff and renewing all sorts of stuff, and it's starting to feel a little bit more like they're dialing it back.
Yeah. That is
So
definitely what it seems like. They have canceled some things, extended out some things to later dates, not announced as much, not rolled out as much. So this looks like a shift in strategy, certainly.
it does feel weird to me though. There are a handful of shows I can think of where they just said nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they do things like announce a Time Bandits is canceled, right? Out there. Constellation canceled. No
Right.
more. And I'm sitting over and going like, what about Hello Tomorrow? It's been 2 years.
Yeah.
And then they kind of let Sugar fall
Sugar
into
seen
that same
nothing.
kind of
I
space.
haven't seen anything about Sunny. I know that just ended.
Yeah. So I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. We'll
you
see.
know, I guess maybe precisely those shows are in the space of, hey, maybe we'll make more if it works out, maybe not. At least they haven't, if you're a fan of one of those shows, as I am, at least they haven't come out and said, you're not going to get any more of this. So I guess that's something. But
Yeah, no, I mean that finality that we get or sometimes don't get is often interesting. But yeah, some of these on the border shows, I should say, on the knife's edge, whether or not they'll survive, we haven't heard anything yet.
yeah. So keep an eye out. Um, an upcoming show, I feel like there's a real tendency to ignore stars, and I apologize because I'm definitely a part of it. Like this is like, how many people have stars? It's a weird one, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure there's some people out there who have stars and like they watch what's that show that everyone likes with about like the time traveling romance show,
Oh gosh, on
Outlander
Stars,
or something.
that may be it. The only thing I remember watching on Stars was it Black Sails.
Oh yeah,
I watched Black Sails on Stars. That's the only thing I can recall from that network.
I saw some of that when I was at my aunt's house, but they were watching it on Netflix.
Oh, well, there you go.
The Party Down is on Stars.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Party Down's a good show. Anyhow, upcoming to stars in October. I think it's October 10th. The show called Sweetpea, starring Ella Purnell. There's a trailer for it. I think it looks pretty good. You watch
Yeah,
the
I mean, I
trailer?
want to ask you, is Ella Purnell becoming one of the biggest female movie stars or TV stars in the world? She's obviously been in Yellow Jackets. She had lead in Fallout. She's now got this show that's coming to stars. Looks like she has a couple of upcoming projects. She's really I think climbing the ladder right now.
Yeah, I think she's on the rise. Of course, I don't expect to. Well, I mean, she could be in Yellow Jackets some more,
Ah, okay, okay.
in theory.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, but okay. You're not spoiling
Um,
anything.
Uh, but anyhow, yeah, no spoilers. Whatever. Yeah, it's been a while. Um, but yeah, I mean, I appreciate her performance. I appreciate her performance in Fallout. I thought that was fun. Um, and here it seems like she's going to get frustrated and start killing people. It seems like that's the premise of what's going
Yeah,
on.
they're not holding that back, certainly in the trailer. What's going to happen here? Not much left to the imagination in terms of what her motivation and what her reaction is to what she is feeling and perceiving. So yeah, it's I like this sort of darker side of her. I certainly think it's more Yellow Jackets than Fallout, but this is a weird thing to say, but a good look for Ella Purnell. This show does look like she can handle it well.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. So I'll have to try to check it out on Stars. So,
If you
watch Stars.
find a way to watch it without stars, let me know.
No, I think you probably have to sign up for Stars.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can get a free trial. Maybe you can get a free trial. Um, let's see, at least one more thing, maybe only one more thing. This just caught my eye as Doctor Who fan and an Archie Punjabi fan. Apparently, Archie Punjabi is going to be a villain in the new season of Doctor Who. Hooray! That's all I've got.
Yep. I'm I'm
Um,
I'm very happy for the for the Doctor Who viewers out there. Can't
are
comment
you?
much on that.
I could ask you this. I mean, are you familiar with Archie Punjabi, really? Or for me,
Just vaguely familiar. Yeah. I
for me, it's
mean,
primarily The Good Wife. But
yeah, and I've only seen a couple episodes of the Good Wife, but certainly I'm familiar with the name and of the some of the performances. But yeah, hey, I'm glad that I'm just happy that after all this time there is still more compelling Doctor Who content out there for anyone that loves it. Happy for you guys.
yeah, are you aware, Ryan, of the big question everyone wants answered about what happened exactly between Archie Punjabi and Juliana Margulis?
No, I'm not. I'm not aware of this question.
Something happened.
Oh boy. Okay,
They're like,
in the show or in real life?
no, in real life, like there's a
Okay.
scene of the show. I think it's their last scene together in the show, and they're not actually together. They filmed them separately and spliced it together. You can tell. And
Okay.
then
Okay.
there's everyone's like, okay, clearly they had a falling out, but it was bad, and why? Right? Like
I
what
see.
happened? Um, we'll probably never know.
I'll probably never know. Yeah, you're
We'll
right.
never
Okay.
know.
Well, shows I am watching. Two new this week. It's Comic Book Week on Disney Plus and on Max. We got the first two episodes of Agatha All Along with Catherine Hahn, and then the Colin Farrell project Penguin, the spinoff from the Matt Reeves Batman movie of a couple of years ago. Just a quick comment on each one. Agatha All Along, I actually thought was quite fun and interesting and clever. My only disappointment with it is I'm disappointed as a comic book fan and comic book series fan that it feels like you have to have seen WandaVision to understand how the
Hmm,
show is propelling forward, right?
I
It's got
see.
a cool story on its own, but you kind of are lost at the beginning if you don't understand what happened in WandaVision. I understand the connective tissue, but I guess with Agatha all along, I was pleasantly surprised with how it's gone through the first two episodes.
Cool. Do they sing
Uh,
songs? Is that,
they did in the
yeah.
second episode. Yep. All the coven of witches and potential witches got together and sang a song, which I think was one of the ways how it was pitched. And, they did a thing together at Comic-Con and did all this stuff. So yeah, there's some witch harmonies in this show so far. So that's pretty good.
Cool.
Penguin, I've seen this described a couple of places as Batman's version of The Sopranos, and this is actually just a really cool mobster story. So I was very much like the first episode. They've only had one. It came out on Thursday, but I think they're going to shift the show now to Sundays after the industry finale. So I quite enjoyed Penguin and the world that they built, sort of this gritty Gotham that is continuing from that Batman movie. So I'll definitely keep watching this one.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, both have been on my radar, but as we've talked about many, many times, I've fallen out of watching this kind of show. No
Yeah.
offense. Um, but I don't know. Part of me thinks like maybe I should finally watch WandaVision and Agatha. Oh, I like Catherine Hahn.
Yeah,
Uh,
WandaVision and Loki. If you're going to ever watch two Disney Plus Marvel universe shows, those would be the two to watch. They're definitely the most innovative, creative, and interesting. Um, Penguin, you can watch without having seen the Batman movie. Actually, they do 3 or 4 minutes at the beginning that I thought effectively set the stage for what you needed to know for this world, and then they purposely said, this is that Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, is not thinking about the Batman at all in this show. So you don't have to have sort of that hanging over its head or expecting him to show up in the finale or anything like that.
well, maybe I'll check out the Penguin. That seems
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little
I
less of
would,
a
if you,
barrier of
if you
entry
choose
here.
one, if you choose one, I would choose that one.
Cool. I don't have a whole lot. Football season started, and I've been watching football, and I've been watching things about football.
Yeah.
But we did previously mention Bill Belichick being hired by Underdog to host a show on their YouTube channel. You have the chance to check this out at all?
I checked out the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should say that's been the only one that I've checked out so far.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm a little disappointed by it. I don't know what I expected
Yeah.
actually, but when it was billed as like Bill Belichick's going to break down game film, like, well, he knows about football. That's going to be interesting. And probably I'll give it one more chance at least somewhere along the line here. But from what I did watch, which could have been the same thing that you watched,
Yeah.
um, it just seemed like a lot of him saying, you got to have solid fundamentals.
Yeah.
You got to take care of the ball. You can't.
I've seen Belichick a lot on the Manning cast, on Monday Night Football, and it's a lot of this guy is just really good. This guy just plays really good football. It's just
Got to
a,
cover Garrett Wilson.
yeah,
That's my
shameless plug for
analysis.
the local team here. I would much rather watch CJ Stroud break down defenses and some of the things he understands it and how intelligent he is about the game than I would Bill Belichick. At least he makes it more engaging.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Bill Belichick is wrong. It's just like
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm really getting a football education when you say things like, "You got to take care of the football. You're not
Yeah.
going to win if you fumble at the goal line."
And what did we
Yeah, I
expect? I
know,
mean, really,
Bill.
when we hired Bill Belichick, did we expect to get a new version of himself? I just don't know what they were thinking about that.
That's what my original comment was like, I don't know what I expected, but somehow I expected not this
Right.
or something with more depth to it. I mean, I'll go ahead and plug though, something that is in a similar kind of vein, that Underdog puts out. I don't know if you've ever watched this at all. They call it Scheme. This is with Josh Norris and Colt
Oh
McCoy. You
yes,
ever watch
yes,
that?
certainly, absolutely, I have.
That's great
It
because
is.
they're actually really like breaking down the film, and Colt McCoy clearly has an extensive collection of baseball caps.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say there are people who were meant to create content around football and people who were not. Belichick was meant to be a coach and not necessarily an on-camera personality.
Yeah, yeah. And if you think about his Underdog show too, at least the one I watched, he was sitting there with like Matt Patricia. It's like, oh man, there's just like not enough charisma on the camera right now. No offense to these guys, right? It's like, yeah, ball, but you got to entertain me too.
Exactly. Exactly.
Anyhow, I guess let's talk about Lost.
Oh, let's do it.
All right. So again, it's the 20th anniversary of Lost in a couple of days on the 22nd. We're celebrating the 20th anniversary of the premiere of the pilot here. Um, all the spoilers for everything in Lost are on the table here after our brief musical interlude. You're of course free to listen if you've never watched Lost at all. Everyone's free,
Yeah.
make your own decisions in life. But we're gonna, I'm sure we'll talk about how it ends and all kinds of other stuff. So this is your spoiler warning, and we'll pop in a little music and be back in about 10 seconds.
All right, we are back to talk about the 20th anniversary of the premiere of Lost, specifically the pilot, and some of the implications of this show for the future. Just a quick synopsis: debuting in 2004, running for 6 twist-filled seasons. Lost follows survivors of the crash of Oceanic Flight 815 as they attempt to understand and escape a mystical island where they're stranded after their plane goes down. The show was led by Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse over those 6 seasons. Lost featured an innovative flashback and flash forward, eventually, story structure that allowed audiences to dive deeper into the characters of the show, as well as look harder at the mysteries surrounding their circumstances. It's often thought of to be one of the greatest TV series of all time, certainly one of the most innovative for modern television. And Lost's sixth season finale remains one of the most discussed, divisive episodes of television in history. We'll get into, certainly, I think that you and I both are fans of that finale. But just wanted to sort of ask your origin story with Lost. Were you there from the very beginning? Did you catch up at some point along the way after sort of the hype hit? How'd you start with Lost?
I got into it relatively early. I wasn't there at the very beginning, and I will throw the question back to you in a moment, but I'll answer more for myself first, I guess. Um, Season one was out on DVD, and I rented season one on DVD from a little local video store in Brooklyn, where I was living at the time, Borum Hill. I have no idea if that video store is still there. Likely it is not, right?
Likely
But
not.
but it was a cool little place, you know. They had like a little Criterion collection wall and stuff. But anyway, there was some hype around Lost already. Only one season existed. Some people were talking about it a bit. So I rented that first season on DVD, watched it, and then from there was in real time. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, that actually is a similar story in that did not watch the first season in real time in October of 2005. So after the second season had started, I'm mentioned before, lived in Houston at the time. In October 2005, Hurricane Rita came through the Gulf and up into Houston. Everyone in Houston evacuated north. We were one of the living in the south. We got stuck in all the traffic. After 15 and a half hours, we had made it about 45 miles north and decided we couldn't go anymore. So we pulled off with some family members that we were caravanning with to my sister-in-law's parents' house. And someone that was in that group they brought with them the first season of Lost on DVDs. So we spent sort of our hunkered down during a hurricane time watching the first season of Lost. And that was, I mean, I was hooked from then on. So then it became sort of the scramble to find anyone who had DVR'd the first few episodes of the second season so that we could catch up before whatever the next episode that was going to be on later in October, so we could be sort of up to date with it. And as you can imagine, after the first season finale and the cliffhanger there, the scramble that we had to try to figure out what was going on, who had it, who could we watch it, because DVDs certainly weren't out yet. This was not, you could rent it from Netflix or Blockbuster yet. So yeah, it was something where we really had to work hard to find those first few episodes of season two.
That's wild. Such different times,
Yeah.
you know. By the time Lost was over, Netflix streaming did exist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly when they launched it. It must have been 2008, 2009, somewhere in there. I have to look it up. I didn't really plan on wanting to be able to say the year, but by the time Lost was over, I know it did exist. And then, because I got really into this show, maybe not as much as some other people, maybe not as much as you, I don't know, but I was into it enough that before season 6 aired, I rewatched all 5 seasons on Netflix streaming, to prepare myself for the final season of the show.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did the same, but with the DVDs. This was one of the few, if not the only show that there was a group of 15 of us that watched this show together every time it came out. And, we at each other's houses just could not wait. We were pausing and rewind, all the things that you would do when you're with a group of people watching it. I sort of missed that experience because I don't know that I've ever had it since, but did, I believe, go back and watch all the DVDs before the 6th season aired.
Yeah. I know a lot of people had that kind of experience where they'd have like Lost watch parties every week, which sounds pretty fun. I didn't really. I mean, I watched it with my girlfriend at the time. About it. until the series finale, when I did get together with a handful, there were 4 or 5 of us or whatever,
Yeah.
who gathered to watch the finale of the show, and the room was mostly filled with disappointment, I will say. Um, which, and part of that was me. I mean, we'll talk about this. I think you briefly mentioned it already. In terms of the finale, I mean, the number of people out there who will say it's one of the worst finales ever. I mean, they're definitely out there. You'll kind of them on the internet.
Yeah.
Um, I can relate to that somewhat, but I came around on it ultimately.
Yeah.
For me, it was one of these when I originally watched it, I was kind of like, no. But then
Yeah.
thinking about it more, and then having done a rewatch of Lost once or twice since then,
Hmm.
I've really come around on the ending. What about you? Did you
Yeah.
like it
It was
initially? Or
it was an interesting experience watching the finale with that many people because it was like that many different emotions after it ended. Some people audibly groaning, some people, oh, see, they were dead the whole time. Some people, like me, I mean, weeping, crying at the end of it. I mean, it just was this spanned gambit of emotions. And I think I was more sad about like the sentimentality of it hadn't really hit me yet. I was more sad that it was over.
Mhm.
Um, but I did appreciate sort of the finality of it. So on the dial, I was more towards appreciating and enjoying the finale than I was the other side. And then since then, I've moved all the way, over to just thinking it's a masterful finale.
Yeah, I've gone more and more in that direction myself. I mean, I think for me, the big problem that I had was with almost the whole final season. Like I was already getting a little bit worried insofar as throughout the show you have the running theme, the kind of man of science, man of faith theme, right? But also in relation to the stuff happening on the island, where there would be a scientific explanation, which,
Yeah.
might not accord with real existing science entirely. That's not the point, but there's an attempt
Yes.
to,
Yes.
explain things in terms of electromagnetism or whatever weirdness, but
Yeah.
like plot, at least pseudo-scientifically.
Right.
Um, and so the final season did kind of veer meaningfully more in the direction of mysticism in a way or something. And so that was part of what bothered me initially. But, one thing that really does bother me, it did from the very beginning, it are the people who say, oh, they were dead all along. It's like, no, that's precisely the opposite of that.
Exactly.
Did you pay
Exactly.
attention to um
This experience made them more alive than ever. I think you could be argued.
yeah, and I think it's interesting, at this point now in 2024, I've gotten a bit sick of like parallel universe stories. But
Same.
when Lost's final season was airing, no, I found this just incredibly intriguing. What's going on with the Flash sideways, as we call it, and that's part of what brought me around personally was being able to kind of reconcile things on the quote unquote scientific side, not quite, but
Yeah.
because at the end of season 5, they blow up the island.
Right. Yeah.
So at the beginning of season 6, the plane never crashed, right? So it's like Juliet actually created an alternate reality, and then you've got to think about how the characters in the alternate realities relate to one another, or resonate with one another, or something like that. Um, but also, we can talk about that more if you want to.
Hmm.
The bigger thing is, I've what I really come around on is it's not the point.
Right. Exactly.
The point is in the characters.
Yes.
And I really love this article we have on the site from Hannah Searson. I don't know if you had a chance to read this,
Yeah.
of
This is the
lost
one
your
I'm.
constant with sentimentality.
Yeah, that really the story was always about their individual and collective journeys. And there were mysteries and unexplained things and who's on the other outrigger, which has never been answered, just as a sorry, that's a deep cut, but it's all sorts of questions and things that in the end were interesting, but didn't really matter because what mattered was that these journeys met up in one point and they were able to continue the rest of it together. Yeah, it's a great piece on the idea of sentimentality.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I think that's right. I think it's a really good one. And then from that point of view, if we embrace that sentimentality, then this is where the finale of Lost really hits and lands in terms of the characters and how they relate to one another
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
emotion. It's
Yeah.
emotionally
Yeah. The
very
idea that, I mean,
satisfying.
so many important conversations and pieces of dialogue throughout this show, but that one at the very end about with Christian Shepherd telling Jack that the most important times you've had was the time you spent together, and just how many different layers there are to that one specific sentence. And it could have meant the time they spent on the island together. It could have meant what they have done in their lives since that time. It could have meant that they were all connected in some way, and it needed this experience to for them to find those things. Yeah, just so many different ways that they can find out that that important time was the time they spent together.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that bothered me, and the other thing that the thing that still bothers me a little bit is it doesn't really make sense that Christian's alive. What, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that was always, it's taken a long time for me to sort of reconcile the idea of how do we continue to see Christian. Obviously, I think when we saw him many times over the island, it was a representation of the smoke monster. Then you see him again, like on the boat in the season 4 finale when he tells Michael, okay, you can go now. You see him obviously again and several times throughout season 6. These are more the ethereal versions of Christian Shepherd, not the physical versions. And so, yeah, it was sort of this, how do we justify seeing him in all these different ways? But he was just more this compass than anything. When he wasn't the smoke monster, I guess I should say.
Right. I mean, but what stands out to me, I guess, in the Flash sideways is if you want to interpret it in the kind of deflationary way,
Hmm.
metaphysically, right? That you say, okay, well, because they blew up the island, then there's the alternate timeline where the plane doesn't crash, and then this is what's carrying that out. But he would still be dead,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Jack went and got his corpse, and it was in the coffin, and um, so but it's okay. Again,
Yeah.
this isn't what's
Yeah.
important. And what's
Yeah,
important
I
is
mean,
that
there are.
in
It's
finale.
funny that you bring this up because there are so many important conversations that happen with Christian Shepherd at the center of them, and then it forces you to think, okay, well, who is he? What version of him is he right now? What are we seeing a physical or metaphysical version of Christian Shepherd? So yeah, it forces you to think that, but often the central themes of this show, even back in episode, I think it's 4 or 5 of season 1, White Rabbit, start with this Christian Shepherd sort of pushing them to do certain things.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess if you want to explain it, quote
Yeah.
unquote, explain it, I think you'd have to go in the direction of something like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Christian's soul was able to like jump around through alternate realities and interact with people or something,
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know, and anyhow, I will at this point definitely defend the ending. And we meaningfully talked about what I put in our notes about this, what I had in mind when I asked you, do you even need to like it?
Hmm.
But maybe we can interrogate that a little bit more in terms of thinking about the show overall.
Yeah.
It seems like there are a lot of people who are really into the show, were disappointed in the ending, mad at the ending, and then don't like the show anymore. And I'm not sure if that makes sense. Like even if you take the point of view that the ending was bad,
Yeah.
would do you think that would wreck the show?
Yeah. I've always been fascinated with this debate about, I think that I can be comfortable with whether you think the ending is good or the ending is bad, as long as you understand what they were doing and don't
Mm-hmm.
misinterpret what they were trying to do there with the flash sideways and some of the things that they say throughout that sort of give this wink, wink, nod, nod to, uh, we were dead. I think there's actually a comment like that in the finale of like, we were always dead or something like that. As long as you understand what they were doing with that story, whether or not it landed with you, I can see either way, but just I think don't misinterpret what happened in your quest to find out whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I'm trying. I was trying to remember the line now. I have to look this up to refresh my memory. What you're referring to. It's something in
Yeah.
that conversation between Jack and Christian, but it's way more ambiguous than
Yes,
saying like,
certainly.
oh. But anyway, I mean, I guess what I would suggest, I don't know if anyone listening perhaps did watch Lost when it was airing, was disappointed in the ending,
Yeah.
thought that it wrecked the show and has never returned to it. Return to it because I think particularly on a rewatch, the most recent time I rewatched the whole series personally was in 2020. It's just so good. The
Yeah,
structure of the episodes going back and forth between what's happening on the island
exactly.
and the flashbacks, or then ultimately flash forwards, flash sideways. We started with the flashbacks. The way that they employ that structure to deepen the characters and how we get to know these characters in a way where we have to be thinking about who they are on the island and who they were before they got to the island and how that
Yeah.
is the same person. I really do think gives a depth to the characters on this show that you don't get in a lot of places. And the episodes tend to be really quite entertaining too.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely fascinating and led to some of the most sort of jaw-dropping moments really of the entire series. You think about starting with Walkabout and just the revelation of what, or what had happened to Locke before he arrived on the island,
Mhm.
to Sun and Jin, to I mean, just the story of Sawyer leading into what happens at the brig in season 5, where he is able to confront the con man. I mean, just and I'm trying to think if there was a show before Lost that really used flashbacks, character detail like that to enhance its story. I couldn't come up with anything. I'm sure there are some, but not certainly not to this level that Lost would use it.
No, yeah, I definitely don't think there's anything to this level where, particularly because in most episodes, the flashbacks are all around one character. So it's like, this is a
Yeah,
Sawyer episode,
right,
right?
right.
And then, of course, you know, you don't get flashback episodes for some of the characters. You're like, oh, Froger's in trouble. But, sometimes they slipped in certain ways. I think that part of the ultimately kind of mixed reaction and or mixed kind of legacy of Lost might be in that it is the case that when the show was on, all kinds of stuff was going on in terms of engaging with the questions, engaging with the mysteries, looking at it as a kind of puzzle box, having
Yeah.
conversations around the water cooler, like what's going on with the
Yes.
polar bear and all of that. And that then if you're looking at it just from that point of view, like it's a puzzle to be solved, then maybe you end up being disappointed. But I would argue ultimately the show itself tells us that's not what it was ever about. It consistently answers a question while at the same time opening a larger question or mystery, such that you almost don't notice that it's answered some of the questions you used to be asking.
Yeah, that sort of duality there is something that I loved about the show, even in real time, that you would get answers to some of these scientific or non-scientific questions and mysteries that came up. But sort of the bigger question that wasn't inevitably answered till the end was, why these people and why now and why this experience? But all of that looking back at their lives and looking forward at what would come after the island sort of led to that the end of that journey. And so yeah, again, just it became the most discussed, debated, paused, evaluated show that had ever existed on television. Um, but most of that conversation in the end was not to say it wasn't necessary, but it was not, I guess the that was not the finish line to answer all those questions.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page here,
Yeah.
and that's why I do recommend anyone who was into the show like that and then soured on it, if you haven't returned to it, I do think it's worth returning to. There's a lot of great stuff here. Personally, I love that structure we're talking about with the flashbacks, then the flash forwards, then the flash sideways.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with, have you ever checked out this internet project that they call Chronologically Lost?
Yes, I have watched most of Chronologically Lost. Find this very, very interesting. I mean, very ambitious project. So very happy to whoever it was. I didn't jot down who it was that put this together, but the chronological Lost is I mean, you certainly need to do it after you watch the entire series.
Yeah,
It is, I think, quite expository in terms of understanding the timeline of events. It's sort of in the same vein. There are some recommendations I can certainly give if people want to watch the episode or the season 6 episode Across the Sea at a better time than when it actually is placed in the series. But yeah, this sort of chronological look really is kind of a refreshing look at how um it gives you, I think, a good understanding of timeline of events and what led to what and why things happen in a certain way. It is a really cool companion to watching the show as as originally aired.
interesting. Yeah, I have not checked this out. I am somewhat intrigued by it.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I understand correctly that they're just taking the footage from the show and putting it all in chronological order. I mean, that's the
Yeah, I
goal.
mean, so it starts with Across the Sea, which happened whatever thousands of years ago, and then leads up to, say, the timeline of the Black Rock back in the 19th century, leading up
Hmm.
to early days of Charles Widmore and the bomb, and then the beginning of the Dharma Initiative. Sort of have all of this explanation of things, and then you see things happen. So, like I said, it uncovers the mysteries before they're revealed on the show if you watch it that way. But
Yeah,
just sort of see, oh, I can understand how things happen and why things happen. It's an interesting, like I said, companion to
I am very intrigued by it.
it.
It's whether I have it in, because it's the whole show still, right?
Yes, it is the
So do
whole
I
show.
have those all of those hours in me to rewatch Lost, but not really, you
Not really.
know. Particularly when, as I was just saying, part of what I always really enjoyed about Lost is the structure with the
Yeah,
flashbacks and
yeah,
everything. And plug another article on the site. I recommend on that note, I would check out Michael Suarez's article about Lost, how Lost structure expresses its themes.
mm,
Like Michael does a really interesting job there, precisely of um teasing that out, I myself wrote something on season 2 of Lost, which is also on the site, and I thought that was really interesting. How in thinking about the whole season as an object, if that makes sense. But it really started to become clear to me. It was like, oh, this is what this season is about. That
yeah.
you can get the theme of the season itself, which I'd have to refresh my own memory on what I wrote, but I know it was something about faith. It was something about a question about
Yeah,
faith.
yeah. And
Um,
you've written about season 2. I've written about the last 5 or 6 episodes of season 3 and how I thought it's some of the best television ever. It is. I mean, I can't ever make up my mind from month to month what my favorite episodes are of the series, but certainly through the Looking Glass and sort of the resolution and then closing of one book and opening up another that provides is just fascinating television in my mind. But yeah, there were, whether it was through seasons, whether it was through arcs, there were always these themes that would be addressed. And it just it's how they were able to incorporate so many of those, I think, was just just nothing sort of brilliant to me.
yeah, agreed. Yeah, I was going to ask you what your favorite episodes of this of the series are, and then I remembered. Well, you wrote this article about how
Yeah.
those episodes in season 3 are the greatest episodes in TV history. So, like, maybe those ones you would choose. Um, I think for personally, I think it's a difficult question. I've written on a few episodes on their own on the site, so those would probably stand out to me. Like whatever happened, happened. I wrote on that
Yeah.
one. I like that one a lot. I like all that stuff. I like that
Yeah.
season 5 stuff. Give me,
Yeah.
Sawyer and Juliet, together in the '60s. I'm there for it.
Yeah.
Those are two of my favorite characters, by the way. I don't know how much of a dark horse Juliet is as favorite Lost character, but I'm willing to stump
Yeah.
for
Now I've never heard
Juliet.
anybody say Juliet before, but I thought about this a lot, and I think it might be Sawyer is
Yeah, it
my
might be
favorite
Sawyer.
Lost character. I mean, he's just that arc, that character, that history, where he starts to where he goes is just I'm at a loss for words sometimes of other to say things other than brilliant or masterful. I just think specifically what they did for him and to him is just incredible.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. So if I'm honest, it's probably Sawyer, but I like to sort of stump for Juliet because I like
Yeah,
Juliet a lot, and I
yeah.
feel like other people
My
not
my
so
wife
much.
and I agree on this, that their relationship is, one of our favorite things ever that we've seen on television. But it's interesting to go back, because I did a rewatch recently. When season 4 ends, Sawyer swims up to shore after he jumped off the helicopter, sees Juliet on the beach. That's clearly meant to sort of start putting them together. But it's
Yeah,
not until several episodes into season 5 that they're together.
yeah,
And then, by the finale, which is like what, an 18 episode season, I mean, you're like, their love is the greatest love that's existed in the history of the universe. It's,
yeah,
it's incredible.
yeah. Pretty much, pretty much. It's great. Least favorite character, Jack.
It's so funny you say that. Yeah.
um,
Our non-hero Jack. Yes.
um, we were going to talk a little bit about how I guess their original plan was that Jack was going to die, and they were going to have Michael Keaton as Jack, and he was going to die in the pilot.
Yep. Yep.
Um, that would have been interesting, I guess. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's a wild story that, yeah, that Jack was supposed to die in the pilot. It was originally conceived and written that way, and they offered it to Michael Keaton, and he agreed to do it because it was a one episode or sort of 1 hour thing. And then it became, no, we need this sort of hero savior figure in our story. And he said, I can't commit to that. So backed out, gave it to Matthew Fox. He becomes Jack Shepherd, and we're off from there. But it's indicative of, there was often sort of a building the Oceanic Flight 815 as it was flying with this show, right? I think the
mhm.
initial show Bible did not have Locke being paralyzed in a wheelchair, but as they began to write that episode, they said, "Oh, look at the sort of dramatic take we can do with this and where we can take it narratively," and added that in. I mean, they just sort of left themselves open to those things throughout the show.
Yeah, personally, I think that's great. That's how TV
Yeah.
works. That's how TV should work.
Yep.
Um, and I think how the best TV generally does work. Of course, we know that there was, some toxicity and other
Mhm.
stuff in the writers' room here, and
Yeah.
we talked about that briefly before. And Mo
Yeah.
Ryan talks about in her book "Burn It Down" and so on. And we don't want to. We're celebrating loss today, so that's just a
Yeah. Plenty of things
quick
out
note.
there.
We're
Yeah.
aware,
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
you
Yeah.
know. But it's talking about Jack though too. It's interesting because I really don't like him very much. I know some people do, but even though I don't, Lost would not be lost without Jack.
That's right. I mean,
And
100% right. Do you feel differently about him at the very end than you do through the first, 115 episodes of the series, because of his sacrifice and the turn that he eventually makes, or is it, he has sort of stayed at the bottom of the rankings for me the whole time?
I mean, it's tough. Like, what are we talking about? In terms of um, do I feel like I like the guy? Do I want to be his friend? Or I don't even know how to put this. No, not really. But he's got the character development that he goes through is good, and the
Yeah.
ending is effective to me. But it's partly effective along the lines of feeling like, oh, this numbskull finally got it or something, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so in some ways he had to be the kind of person he was all along to get to the catharsis at the end, you
Yeah,
know?
I think that's true. I certainly am a fan and appreciate what he did at the end, particularly as he was, anointed by Jacob as the, leader of the island, but then decided to sacrifice himself for the sake of it. And it just seemed like he was always looking out for his own best interest until that very last few minutes of the series.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was also a leader, and the group needed a leader, and there's a certain personality style that you have to be in order to be a leader, I think, particularly in circumstances like that. And it's not necessarily the kind of person I like the most in the world, but I get it,
Yeah,
right? Like, I get that it wouldn't be me,
yeah.
like
Same.
honestly, I don't know, more like Hurley or something, like I don't, what's going on? I've got
And
some
you
concerns.
and you'd inherit the island in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. I did think it was really interesting what they did with Anna Lucia. I don't know how much we want to talk about this, but some of that stuff I feel like got, you were talking about how the extent to which they were writing the show on the fly. Some of the
Hmm.
stuff they tried, I think that they then just kind of um undid in a way, right? Like the Mr. Echo stuff.
Yeah.
But with Anna Lucia also, I thought it was drawing a really interesting contrast between different leadership styles.
Hmm.
Um, and I was always more sympathetic to Anna Lucia than it seemed like a lot of people were.
Yeah, I
I don't
certainly
know
was.
either.
I certainly was too. And I often think that her introduction, this is not about her leadership style, but her introduction is an underrated part of that season one finale. Obviously, the three-part finale in season one is we're launching the raft, Walt is kidnapped, we're blowing open the hatch, the smoke is coming up, right? It's all these things. And then you get in a very quick flashback scene, Jack and Anna Lucia in the bar at the airport. And that's often overlooked, but it's like, oh, we are not just going to do a flashback with Michelle Rodriguez for them having a drink and that's it. So that's
Right.
also introducing something that's still to come. So that was more of the mystery of what's, and so often just often an underrated part of that first season finale to me.
Yeah. So on that front, um, you've got a list, favorite season finales, you've got
Uh,
rankings.
I do. I have I won't say it's indisputable, but I think over time it's become indisputable to me what the rankings are. I'll
Worst to best.
start from worst to best. Let's say two is the worst. This is two is the Walt and Michael get to leave. Jack and Sawyer and Kate are kidnapped. We see that Ben's
Mhm.
the leader of the others. That to me is the worst. Then I'm gonna go with not for the what the finality is of the show, but just for the actual finale. I'm gonna go six.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go, let's see. Ooh, this is where
I
it
thought you
gets
had this worked
fucking
out
tough now.
beforehand.
I did, but now I'm debating between two. Now I'm debating between two. Okay, so we're gonna go two, we're gonna go six, we're gonna go five, four, one, three. That's from worst to
Five, four,
best.
one, three.
Yes. So
Five is when Juliet blows up the bomb.
the incident, which is fantastic. But you have to put it somewhere amongst. So the incident through the
Yeah.
looking glass with Charlie, not Penny's boat. We have to go back. The you know the three-part finale for season two, or sorry, season one when they launched the raft, blow the hatch, et cetera, et cetera. And then really underrated season four when there's the boat. They have to, they finally fly off the island, but then the boat explodes, so they have to fly back. The island disappears. Penny finds them. That to me is maybe the most underrated of the six finales.
Interesting. Maybe the most under. So your rankings again were I
Okay,
lost
so
track.
three,
Two,
three
three.
from best to worst now.
Okay.
Three, one,
All right.
four, five, six, two.
All right.
Three, one, four, five, six, two.
Yeah, I'll accept it. I mean, one's definitely up there. Three is with Charlie, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that it's hard to beat that. The end of one is definitely really good. We talked about it on the podcast before. It was on your
That's right.
Mount Rushmore of
That's right. That's right.
episodes. So how does that fit
Yeah.
together,
I've
Ryan?
re-chiseled it to put
How does that fit
episode three.
together? Sorry, I just tapped my microphone accidentally. Um, but that's quite good. They find the hatch, right, and blow and all of that. Um, so I'm with you. I've got very few quibbles here. I don't know. It's hard because if you want to move something up in the rankings, you have to move something else down in the rankings.
Exactly. With only six, it's tough to maneuver them. And I don't put six, the series finale in the fifth position because it's a bad finale, but there's just so many oh my Lord moments in the others that just sort of shocking things as opposed to resolution in the as
Yeah.
we have in the series finale. Yeah.
I'm tempted to try to get five higher, right? Because I mean, we were just talking about Sawyer and Juliet,
Yeah.
and
I could
this
certainly
is
see switching.
Juliet banging on the bomb.
Yeah,
right?
I would be happy with a 3-1-5 as the top three as well. I just personally like it four quite a bit.
I think I'll do that for my personal rankings.
Yeah.
I'll go 3-1-5-4,
Okay,
6,
then two. Yeah,
2.
two is the most
Oh, and it's
anticlimactic.
just I don't know. Again, I wrote that article on season 2, and considering season 2 as a whole, I think it's very, very good season of television.
Yes, it
You have
is.
to think about
Yes,
how coming out of season 1, we hadn't even met the others yet. We
that's right.
hadn't even
That's
met
right.
Desmond yet, right? Like I'd be tempted to say almost like season 2 is when Lost became Lost.
Yeah, yeah. No, it really is. I mean, you're introduced to the far corners of the island, the different factions of who's going to be there, Tailies, others, Desmond. We sort of hear about Penny for the Widmores for the first time. So yeah, I mean, it's where the rest of the gang is introduced, basically.
Yeah. Rewatching Ben's introduction too is quite
Yeah,
good. I mean, of course, you have to remember, right? The first time around, we didn't really know.
yeah, exactly. This big mystery for like 5 or 6 episodes of who he is.
Are we suspicious of him or not? And of course, we're
Exactly.
suspicious of him, but should we be? And how much of the stuff around, going back to this briefly before we're done here, in that experience of watching it the first time around, how much of this stuff did you engage with in terms of the quote unquote mobisodes, which I think is a term that's totally fallen off. No one says
Yeah,
that.
when you used to be able to create mobile episodes that you could watch on your device. Yeah,
This is before the TikTok.
right.
But if it were now, it'd be like, hey, there's TikTok videos, or
Exactly.
something.
Exactly.
The message boards, there was some other stuff, there were games, there were books.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't engage in all this stuff all that much myself. What about you?
Anything that was online, I devoured it. The little extra episodes, message boards, people that had drawn the map and put it up, on a website. There were some virtual games, I think. I did go through a couple of the books that were featured on the show. I did not get into the books that were written and published as these are ancillary stories about other characters you haven't seen on the show, right? So there were several of those that were
Hmm.
written. Then there was Bad Twin, which was a book supposedly written by someone who was on the
I think I,
island and published after his death.
hmm.
So I didn't get into those, but I did get into some of we're reading I forget. I'm just drawing a blank. Fahrenheit 451, or we're reading Fountainhead, or whatever it is that Sawyer was reading that in the moment. We get into some of those and check them back out
Oh,
again.
you did some of that. You were taking
Yeah.
like reading recommendations from Sawyer.
Yes. Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's great. That's great. I didn't do. I mean, it's really striking to me now thinking back, um, how little I did. I mean, some online stuff, sure, but not a ton, um, comparatively.
Yeah.
But particularly compared to what I did when Twin Peaks came back in 2017, which kind of led us to where we are right now, Ryan, with TV obsessive existing, and all of that, or like the amount of stuff that I did then. But Lost was one of the first shows where that was kind of a real thing. I mean, in fairness to
Yes.
news groups in the 1990s and Usenet and all of that,
Yeah. Yeah.
Lost really kind of lit a spark. Um,
Yeah. It
Pre-social media
was.
days, meaningfully, but
Yeah. It just hit at the right time, right? We didn't have much, if any, social media, at least for the first few seasons of this show. So you really had to rely on these, like, as you said, message boards and forums, and any place you could devour content. They set up obviously websites that would connect to certain things, but it sort of became a puzzle and a game to go find these things and devour these things and look at the fake Oceanic 815 or Oceanic website where if you poked around, you could find things out about different people. And so it really was on the sort of leading edge of a lot of that stuff, which would become just the overwhelming influx of information we have now for shows that exist on social media and online, all of this. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do recall talking a bit about it on Facebook and stuff like that. So exactly where the years line up. At the very beginning,
Yeah.
I don't know. And Twitter certainly existed. Stuff existed certainly by the end when Lost ended in 2010. Um,
Yeah, we're
but
really sort of starting to take off with social media then, certainly with web content. The Office did some of these web episodes. The other shows were picking up on it as well. So yeah, it really became a part of I think that's sort of the traditional popular television, but yeah, there wasn't much of this before Lost.
Yeah. I mean, I would appreciate if more shows did more of this stuff, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Yellow Jackets has done a little bit,
they have.
a
Yeah,
little bit. Which of course I feel like that show owes a lot to Lost. If we're talking about
it
the
does.
legacy of Lost,
It does.
um, that gets in there, and I don't know what else. All sorts of things, really. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it is a significant show in TV history.
So do you think, considering how much it's influenced and how much we see things get rebooted and revisited and rethought, do you think we'll ever see more Lost canon content?
No, I don't think. I don't know if I think we should.
I don't think we should either.
Okay, we're agreed on that.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean I don't think we will, because I mean
Mm,
the ABC executives will do anything to make money, but whether we should, I feel pretty confident that we we should live with what we've got.
special, the Michael story,
Right.
a Lost limited series event. I don't know if they made something, I'd watch it.
Yeah,
That's
I
part of the
know, I
problem.
know.
But I mean, I presume you've seen, New Man in Charge and all of that, and meaningfully stuff is just kind of it feels wrapped up, I guess. So
Yeah, it does. If it does feel incredibly wrapped up, the things that are left undone are fine. They're not going to contribute meaningfully to what we already know. So yeah, I'm good with it.
yeah, same.
So
We can always revisit it. You know,
another 20 years from now,
you have to go back.
I have to go back. Just
Um,
I appreciate the indulgence. I've said many times this is my favorite show. It's head and shoulders above any other show. So I just love any other chance we get to talk about it.
yeah, man, and I love this show too, and we've talked about this, and I'm well aware that while I'm not going to say it's my favorite show, the ones that I'm going to be ranking above it, you haven't seen. So, like, what are you doing?
Okay, so
Do you not value my
besides Twin
opinions?
Peaks, what else were you ranking about it?
Probably The Sopranos
Okay,
and maybe The Wire.
okay. I
But
have
those are the three that I had in mind.
I have committed to myself this week. I actually downloaded it to watch on a plane yesterday, but didn't get to it. I've committed to starting Sopranos. So I think this weekend is the weekend to do it. So
Cool.
here we go. Here we
We'll
go.
talk about it. What about? Have you seen The Leftovers? You've seen The Leftovers, haven't you?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes.
that's one.
Let the
It's
mystery be.
it's such a hard question if you get into the space of like, what are your five favorite TV shows ever? Like, if
Yeah,
you really try to limit it to five,
yeah,
boy,
yeah,
I do struggle.
yeah. I do
Because it's
too.
like I
I do
want to get
too.
the Leftovers on that list. I want to get Lost on that list. I
Well,
almost can't
double
do a list of
recommendation. If
five.
you liked Lost, and you haven't seen The Leftovers, watch those 3 seasons. They're incredible.
Definitely. And then you can read my series of articles on The Leftovers on TVObscast.com. Also, I do. I'm really, like of all the stuff I've written over the years, that I might be almost the proudest of that stuff. And I don't know how much people read it. It's sitting there,
Oh,
from stuff
all
I
right. Well,
wrote
I'm
like
gonna go read it
five
this weekend. I haven't
five
read that
years
yet.
ago. Yeah, okay. I
I've seen the
did
show, but I haven't read your stuff.
the way I approached Leftovers was by character,
Okay, good.
basically. So,
That's a good way. That's a good way to do it. That's the way I've enjoyed doing it for shows like White Lotus and others. I think that's a really strong way to approach that show.
yeah. I agree. Obviously, that's what I did. Love The Leftovers. Love Lost. Thanks for listening. Hopefully, you all enjoyed this. If you haven't seen Lost in a while, hopefully you're feeling inspired to go put it on. I know I sort of am now after we've been talking
Yeah.
about it. Um, and if you enjoyed the podcast, please do leave a good rating, leave a good review. Give a thumbs up on the YouTube if you're on the YouTube, or hit the subscribe button there. Follow TV Obsessive on social media. Check out TVObsessive.com. There's really kind of a bunch of articles on Lost on there. We mentioned a few of them.
Yeah.
There are many more. We've got at least a couple dozen. I'd have to check the number. Articles on Lost on the site. We're going to come back next week, and our plan is
Yes.
to start talking about a show that we've mentioned, that we've been looking forward to, from Duplass Brothers Productions. This Penelope show
Yes.
that they independently produce is coming to Netflix on September 24th. So we're planning to spend a couple weeks on it, right? Like, we'll do the first half next week and
Yeah, I'd say let's do the first half next week, and then the second week we'll finish it up.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So hopefully it's good. We haven't seen it yet.
I know.
But if you
Or
want
we'll
to,
pivot one way or the other.
if we start watching it, we're like, man. But I mean, I have confidence in the Duplass brothers
Yeah,
production.
yeah.
That it will be worth our time. So if you want to watch along with us, first half of Penelope prior to next Friday. And we'll be back then. And hope you join us. So see you next week.
All right. See you then.